Let's see, calling the meeting of Townsend Housing Authority to order. If we were in person, we would do a Pledge of Allegiance. Shall we do that? Remote?
We can, yeah.
Good morning.
Okay, this
I'll
is
start high
Memorial Day,
school tonight. Good.
Memorial Day weekend coming up. It seems like
Yeah.
the appropriate.
Okay.
All right.
I gotta fetch. Okay, good.
I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance to
To the
the
flag.
to the
flag
flag
Of
of
the
the
United
United
States
States of America
and to
and to the
the
republic
for
for
which it
which it
stands,
stands,
One
one
nation,
nation,
under
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 God,
God,
indivisible
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice.
justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you. Thank our veterans who have who are at the meeting, who've served our country.
Yeah, absolutely.
And tomorrow's Flag Days. So who's ever free, I'll be at the cemeteries. I gotta plug that out there. And I gotta feed my dogs dog cheese.
Yep.
All right, yours, Jack. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so we roll call. Jack Moran. If, I believe, am I still in the position of clerk for?
Anything you want.
Okay.
Whatever you like. Natalie Call present. Whatever hat we wear, we're all a team.
That's
And
right.
Veronica Cal present as liaison from the select board.
Okay.
And I'm Kieran, Housing and Grants Administrator for the town of Townsend. I work for you guys and for the residents. I'm happy to sort of facilitate the agenda for you, but if you guys want to be autonomous, happy to answer questions and contribute when you want. So just pretty agreeable on most things. So.
It is. Go ahead. Whatever you guys want.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
On to 1.3, Chairman's additions and deletions. Natalie, do you have any?
I don't know. Honestly, don't know. I don't have any. Thank you.
Already. All I can really think of is so it's been a minute since we've had a meeting, and getting a quorum has been a bit of a challenge. So
Yes.
I think I'm reminded that we've had previous discussions with the Regional Planning Commission that it would be nice to be able to pick that back up.
Okay.
Perhaps we can put a pin in that as a topic for us being prepared coming into a subsequent meeting to be able to really crack that open a bit and figure out what we feel like we might be able to accomplish with respect to
Sounds great to me.
the commission. So, okay. Item 2, meeting business. So grant usage goals for the housing authority. Item 2.1.
Yeah, and that's I kind of drove some of these agenda items, so forgive me if I'm just catching up to speed. We do have some opportunities for grants. There is some potential funding coming from the Ways and Means Committee, though we haven't gotten any confirmation about that quite yet, for around $250,000. Margaret Scarsdale's office had been working on that for some housing goals, if you will. Again, we don't have an exact yes or no on that, but in the event that we do receive that, it really could be a great tool for the housing authority. And maybe we could combine it with a grant for a housing project, or purchase a house that's affordable right now that we don't want to lose on the inventory list, or buy something that's affordable but maybe needs a little refreshment so it could stay within the index for us. There are some ways to sort of facilitate those funds to accomplish those goals. Happy to be, a proponent and advocate for you guys for that, and support you in any way I can. So.
Sounds great to me.
Yeah, sounds good to me, Sharon.
That's the funding from the bond bill that you're talking about, correct, Kieran?
Correct, yeah.
And doesn't there have to be a project in place and then you request the funds?
Yeah, that's what we're waiting from Benjamin in Margaret Scarsdale's office to answer that question.
Okay.
I've nudged him a couple times and I haven't gotten an answer, but I'm going to see him on Sunday because he's giving the speech for Margaret
Oh,
at our
good.
parade. So he's going to get a question directly asked. So
I thought I got something back and I thought I forwarded it to you.
I think you got something back, but I think there's still not a definite
There's still
yes
a
or no.
question there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we can push that a bit, if you will. I don't think
Okay.
it's, sort of, there might be a little gray for us to work within there. So,
Okay. Good.
and, it does segue, not to jump too far ahead on the agenda, but it segues nicely to One Lois Lane, which is for sale in town. And we have 90 days to sort of match that 338,000 or so dollars price for that home to keep it within the affordable inventory if they don't have an applicant that meets that criteria between now and then. Or sorry, an offer, if you will, for that home sale. So we risk losing that house on our index and in our, sort of SHI side of things. And we ought to, my thought is let's try to find a way to keep it within the inventory. So
Here's an idea. If we could, if it wasn't purchased, and I think we can ask for an extension of 60 days or 90 days,
Pretty
correct?
sure it's at least a 60-day extension option, if I'm not mistaken, with Chapla. Yep.
Okay. The trust can borrow money and we could use our land as collateral. Would it make sense to take that 250 and then see if we could borrow? I honestly don't know how to go about doing this mechanically, the process for it. But could we borrow and then when we sell it, pay back the loan? Is that something that could happen? Do you see what I'm saying?
I see exactly what you're saying, and I'm thinking the same thing, actually. This was when we were talking with the Planning Commission. So can I maybe add another puzzle piece here? So this is a 3-bedroom home in Middlesex County. So HUD FMR for a 3-bedroom in Middlesex County right now is, I'm looking at, it's going to be a metro. It'll be 1 second. Well, oh, here we are. I guess there's a new, is it Lowell metro area now? Anybody familiar with HUD metros?
Lowell metro area is Dunstable, Dunstable, Tingsboro, Pepperell, Groton. They are all in Lowell. We are not in Lowell.
Middlesex, right? We're in Middlesex. I'm just looking for the HUD FMR breakdown, but it's generous. And the point is, one of the conversations that Natalie and I started to have with the Planning Commission was also with some folks from the VA's office. So I have contact with some of the folks that work with the VA, and they have some programs where they provide vouchers for a veteran that would need housing. It's a program called BASH, Veterans Administration for Supportive Housing. A 3-bedroom voucher would probably cover a $300,000 mortgage. And then some, do you know what I mean? So if we were to use the trust to purchase the property, somehow get the money from Scarsdale's, the 250, to be used into the trust, use it to pay it, and then take a loan to pay it back from the trust, I think it's possible we could find a way to get a veteran into that home with a veteran supported voucher. That would, I think, be a really nice situation. And if folks like the idea, I've got some contacts. I'd be happy to. Natalie, you probably have some too. And
Yeah, I mean, I can always reach out, find out what the state.
if you know of any families so it's a 3-bedroom home, right? On Lois.
Yes,
So
yes.
we'd be looking for a candidate that's a family with children. Beautiful neighborhood over there in Coppersmith.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the type of idea that someone like, the Scarsdale office, and that'd be a great story, and what an awesome story for the town to do.
I appreciate it'd be a great story, but I just think it would be nice for town,
Definitely.
And the family. Yeah.
And then on top of that, it's like we have a source of income with the VASH voucher. It's a permanent subsidy, and it's the veteran subsidy, which is, I mean, good luck to anyone trying to cut the veteran subsidy. You're gonna have one hell of a fight. So I think if there's any that are kind of in a position of being durable, I'm with the Housing Alliance here in Worcester. We have a lot of subsidies for more vulnerable populations that are not as we're not as confident that we're going to be able to sustain those, But this is for a population where, I think the veteran population is on everybody's list of, a priority that they really want to support. So
Yeah, definitely.
So what's the method for going about doing this? I think we could learn a lot if we were able to do this just in the process, how it's done, and it would help us for future too. I mean, we won't always have 250,000 sitting there as maybe available to us. We might have to, because of the wording of it, we might have to do some sort of renovation. I don't know, replace the front door. I don't know, something in order to access the funds. The way, if you look in the bond bill, it's worded for renovation and restoration. So
like
we
CPA
have
wording.
Oh,
Yeah, but I looked at that house and looked at the pictures. I mean, we could do, the backyard is in kind of rougher shape, so there's some landscape renovations and restoration that need to occur. It is a cute little house for a family, so maybe it's just some fresh coat of paint, it needs some carpet, that type of stuff to get it, acceptable, more spiffed up for a family. And then I don't know if that satisfies the bond requirements, but I think it gets us in the ballpark. And the goal is we're trying to help someone and their family ideally in need. So, I think we can, try to thread the needle there as best we can. So, and, if I'm going to that MHP conference in the start of June, I may be able to bump into some other folks along the way and sort of, water cooler the idea and see what other communities are doing. And maybe there's some other funding opportunities out there too, to help us. So
I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Plus, once you do it once, then you kind of know how it works. Because, and then we can, when other things happen, we can just keep it rolling. So,
Yeah.
well, yeah, and even if you run into having parcels that are just vacant right now, it's the town could sell them to a company that builds the veteran housing or the accessibility housing, and then we collect the voucher as income to offset the expense for the family or the person. Or right, it's a really good practice in learning how to do it and sort of get some standard operating protocols here. So
Definitely. Okay.
yeah. Okay. Just I did find our Middlesex County. So it's interesting. Lowell is in Middlesex County, So I don't, because Townsend is a smaller town, we're not on this list specifically, but the Lowell portion of Middlesex for a 3-bedroom FMR is coming out at $2,701.
Oh.
If it's the rest, the Acton area of Middlesex County that we fall into, that's actually $3,418.
That's where we sit.
We might, yeah, I think we might actually end up in that higher portion. I think from earlier conversation. But I'll work on trying to pin that down
Okay.
a little more clearly for everyone. But the other detail that I think we need to consider here is, as a housing authority, we don't currently have any contracts with HUD, and we don't currently. So I think the idea here is that the trust would have to own the property, and the housing authority would become a voucher administrator, but not a property owner.
I
So
think that's right.
Yeah.
there's a reason for that, and it has to do with, so there's a rule on the books regarding housing authorities that are federally funded that puts it's called the Faircloth Amendment that went in like 98, that basically says that housing authorities cannot grow their portfolio of publicly owned inventory beyond what it was at that time. But there's nothing that would prevent another agency from owning it, right?
Mhm.
So if the trust owns it, then we could just assume responsibility for being like a voucher administrator without owning any assets, but just sort of taking that piece of the responsibility locally. And whether we do it locally, and the other detail to think about, and this is part of what we were trying to get to with the Planning Commission, was Townsend might actually be able to just come to an agreement with another local housing authority where we could ask them to take that responsibility, so that, you know, that isn't something that we need to build an operation to do. You know, we would need to, you know, create a system of accounting and, you know, open up bank accounts and draw down funds from HUD, which, yeah, I'm not sure that Natalie and I are really equipped to do that as volunteers part-time with the degree of responsibility that it requires to really actually sustain families and housing. So, but there's no reason you couldn't partner with another housing authority that's already doing that work and has that operation stood up, and just, you know, subcontract with them or come to a memorandum of understanding with them. So just some other things to think about, but I think those are some of the details we probably need to do some work on.
Definitely.
Yeah, I know in Dunstable we have an affordable housing project starting. The shovels are in the ground the next few months. It's being privately funded, but I believe they're running it through like Chelmsford Housing Authority or something to that effect. I can't remember all the details, but to your point, the town was like, we don't have the capacity to be landlords, and
right. Yeah. I mean,
you know, we can barely keep our water going. Like we don't have it.
I'm still at work in Worcester right now. So, you know, I was like, I'm not going to get home by time for this meeting. So, you know, yeah. I'm sure Natalie, you don't really have a huge amount of free time either. So it's just the idea that we would responsibility for all that is just a little bit of overambitious probably for our scale. It would be great to be able to serve the community here somehow, and that sounds like it might be a solution we could.
Yeah, might keep me employed though, but I'll be
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you can take it. Absolutely. We can probably use your help find another opportunities.
Yes.
Yeah. But no, that sounds great. I will. What can I help from your side of things, Jack, Natalie? What can I do to assist you guys, whether it be doing research or collecting information, sharing, you know, gathering resources? What would be useful for you too?
So there's a contract at the VA. Jordan Clevenaugh was his name. I actually work with him fairly regularly. He participates in some of the Worcester coordinated entry meetings. So in previous discussion, he had shared with me that some of this was actually his idea when I started to share with him kind of what we were interested to do, and he was enthusiastic and felt optimistic that they probably would have some resources from the VA if we had opportunity in the community that he could work with us. So let me get you in contact. Maybe I'll get a thread here with all of us. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah,
Email,
why not, right?
just sort of, are we okay doing that with the open meeting? Veronica, I'll lean on your expertise. I know you're more of an
I think
expert.
it would be safest to put it through Kieran.
Okay, so we'll put it through Karen, and then would you
Yes.
blind copy on response or something like that to make
Yep.
things for
Send anything to me, and then I'll disseminate to the group. And if you have a strong opinion, just isolate it to me, and I'll just notate that and relay. Sort of play musical chairs here with the information. So.
And then the one other detail was we started conversation with the Planning Commission as well. We had at least one really pretty robust meeting and discussion with them about this same topic, really. And that I think it was around that time that we had some difficulty getting a quorum for additional discussion and meetings, and so. Here we are. It's been a while, but so I'll share those contact details as well, and yeah, I guess that's probably where we pick up.
Yeah, I think that sounds good to me. I'll go to that conference in the first week of June, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of folks like us trying to come up with ideas, and I'll try to gather any information I can. And sort of, I'll share that back with this group as well as the Affordable Housing Trust group. I do know there are a couple builders in the area that some of them are even qualified to build veteran housing, which is great. That, if we need a renovation or something to that effect, they might be able to assist us. And that's some folks I know from my lens as a realtor, which is what I do in my other career path. So I also know some veterans out of a few schools in Boston that are always interested in helping the cause, if you will. So happy to sync up with them if we think it's the right time to try to connect dots here, and keep plugging away. So there is a housing concept that Affordable Housing Trust has discussed for Blood and West Elm that Natalie saw. Veronica's a part of that team, and Jack. It's just it's a housing concept, very infancy stage, but it might be able to be something that could be friendly towards veteran housing, low income housing, senior housing. We haven't really figured out which hat it's going to wear, or if it's going to wear all of them. So it might be another opportunity to think about how to be a housing authority, or to have broader relationships with Fitchburg, Pepperell, Chelmsford, Dunstable, Groton, whoever has a sort of standing plan right now that works, to sort of take some of that ownership and the billing responsibility that does create a lot of headaches along the way. So
you're singing my tune.
Yeah, I'm an efficiency and regionalized type of person. That's what I preach in my town. So we need the better players to simplify things and reduce costs. The way I roll. So
yeah, I'm curious, Veronica, about the Affordable Housing Trust. I know you're pretty tuned into what we have there. Is are there funds in the trust now? And I'm not sure if that is that public information. Is that something
Oh, yeah, that's public information. I'm just smiling because there were funds in the trust. The town allocated 100,000 from ARPA to us, but apparently the subrecipient agreement was never fully completed. And so those funds are being sent back to the Treasury, it seems.
Right.
We just discussed in our meeting before this meeting ways for funding. We do have two forestry contracts, one on the Haynes Road, Wallace Hill Road property, and one on South Row. Those probably won't get executed until November timeframe. So we'll get a little bit of funding there. I figure in the 10 to 20K max. And then we are also, Kieran's going to look into the process for selling the smaller property on Haynes Road. Hopefully we can get more funding that way. So come January, hopefully we will be back to where we were. That's the plan. So.
Okay. And is the trust, does the trust have the authority to be able to, I think I heard you suggest that the trust could borrow.
Yes,
So
we can.
the trust has the authority to be able to take a mortgage?
Yes. If you look in the bylaws are part of the town bylaws. I can't remember the numbering right now because it's changed, but it's the second bylaw under bylaws, not the charter, but the bylaws of the town. So if you go on the website, you can read our bylaws and see what the funding possibilities are and the things that we're able to do. But yes, we can, and we don't have to wait for a town meeting vote to do any of this. That's the beauty of the trust. You can act more quickly and you can do things like what we were talking about earlier. So.
I'll take a look too, but Karen, you probably know about mass housing. Okay. So,
Yeah, enough to hopefully not get myself in trouble, but I will continue to get more.
I know but there's a whole labyrinth of programs in there, but some of them are really kind of geared to try to support some of this kind of activity. So hopefully.
We used the Mass Housing Partnership. They did all the site work and they reviewed the properties that we had. They made the recommendation on which one to go forward with the concept that Kieran was talking about. And they delineated the wetlands. They did all of that. So we had a grant a pre-development grant. So.
Nice.
So probably, I think hopefully I haven't missed the boat on too many opportunities, but I think, getting these meetings under our belt and sort of getting, having me get some marching orders is really helpful so that I can try to fulfill those goals that you guys all have and help as best I can. So I'm appreciative of your time tonight to do that. And, I think, that's sort of what the charge of the position I have is to try to get some of these things rolling and find some grants and opportunities that help the residents of Townsend and go from there. So the more things that you're curious about, if you want to send me links, stuff like that, I sort of browse around myself and happy to chase after anything that you have questions about too. So
Right.
The only other things on the agenda, we sort of touched on Lois Lane and future opportunities. I touched on like handling housing requests for residents and such. I'm going to chat a little bit with Jody, I think, because she was the previous sort of point person for some of the CHAPA questions that we seem to be getting. But at some point, I'd like to kind of spiff up that website a bit to sort of set realistic expectations for people, because like you said, Jackie, once you click into a link, you end up in this labyrinth of just chasing your tail. And there's nothing more frustrating than that when you're looking for housing. So maybe it's just even a one pager that someone could have as a PDF to be like, call here first and then go there. Just something that, I always think of Michael Scott from The Office, like explain to me like I'm a fifth grader. Like that really helps
Yeah.
me, like simpler the better. And it gives, sort of, helps people understand when they're in need. So that's kind of a goal I have for myself to help with some of that stuff. So.
I think we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Move forward.
So-
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have anything else on the agenda unless there's anything that we didn't cover that I can let you guys chat about, or I can be quiet so you can think about it. So,
yeah, I mean, so the only thing I'll just share kind of what's swimming around in my head. Lois Lane looks like a fantastic opportunity. Um, you know, I don't know that our level of preparation is at a point where to me, it seems like a real long shot that we would be able to pull something off within the time frame of that being available. But I think going through the exercise of sort of stepping through these elements is in having these conversations at least would have us prepared for a next opportunity if Lois Lane is not something that we're able to do anything with on this go around. But the point is, I think there was another property probably within the last year, I think, Natalie, that was over in that same neighborhood that came up on the market. We posted it through the marketing channel as being a part of our affordable housing within the community, and I do believe it went to a family that was purchasing it under the low income housing restriction. So,
Oh, good.
Yeah, that went
I
really
believe
well.
it was Coppersmith Way. I forget exactly
Yes.
what
Yeah,
back did, but
21.
but the point is it comes. These things do come up, and so whether it is Lois or just some future opportunity, it would just be good to be prepared. And one other thought, again, just I think this was in a conversation that I had with my contact from the VA Jordan, who he had heard of a development that was going on in Pepperell, and that the developer was interested in being able to serve veteran population if that was an option. So
Good.
it wasn't Townsend specifically, but just not that far. And if there was a veteran in Townsend that was in need, I don't know that would have been a huge barrier to cross the town limits there to be able to connect someone with some services and maybe a little bit of help.
Definitely.
So Natalie, just out of curiosity, do you have any folks that from your contacts that could use a subsidy or?
Well, I can always I have a conference coming up in June, the first week of June. I mean, I'm out of the loop from June 1st to June 15th with 3 different things going on, and I can find out. I can definitely, use my contacts. I mean,
Okay.
mass.gov, I can talk to the veterans and see what's going on with the contacts that I have, and get their thoughts and look at what the state has for veterans. I mean, it's there, online, but there's always different avenues you can go in. And I know there's a couple going on with I think it's Montechusett. I'm just saying different housing for veterans and stuff. Depends on what you're looking for. But yeah, I could definitely find out through, through other veteran service officers and through the state. I can contact them as well.
Sure. Well, actually, what I meant was do you know of any veterans that could use housing or that are in the area?
Right now, offhand, I don't. No, I don't, honestly. I mean, I get the population that's in, on Dudley, people, the older generation that's the senior housing people, I've got a couple people over there that we assist. But as far as offhand, no, I haven't had any questions about that lately. So, but there's always that one person that moves into town that is looking for a house and things like that. There's so many different programs. And I also touch base with the senior center. I can't remember her name off the top of my head right now, but she helps veterans as well as, the population. They need some assistance in different areas. So I can't remember her name offhand. But yeah, I could definitely check it out, find out because you know, they're building all kinds of housing now. I mean, it's all on the TV. I mean, it's all on, where they're building housing for veterans and their families. Soju One I know is one of them. Soju One, they have a place down in Agawam. But as far as house, I haven't heard anything, in regards, but I know there's programs. I bought my house through, my VA, when I, got out of the service, I retired. So there's a lot of programs for veterans out there to buy a house. So with no money down, so I'm just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
guess, yeah, I'll ask around. I have some family that are veterans, so I'll ask around, see if they have any contacts.
Yeah, I'll look and see. I'll check my resources. I'll ask the question. So
Folks that could use the help. It seems like that's kind of what we got to build it up around is if you have a good candidate that could use the resource, it seems like we've got some resources to bring to bear to build up around them. And,
well, that's the thing. If you go to VA.gov, I'm sorry, if you go to VA.gov, it'll tell you what your eligibility is in regards to purchasing a house. I purchased my house with no money down, and this was 8 years ago. And it depends on what your service, what you're eligible for. So we always tell veterans, go to VA.gov, find out what's going on, see what you have. Like I said, they've got programs for veterans in the state as well as, nationally, federal. There's lots of veteran housing ways of doing it for veterans. Especially look at Devens. Devens, they've built it up. I know a couple of people that live there and they're veterans. They have their own house. They're constantly building at Devens. And other different posts that, did close and, then developing all these areas for veterans as well as people that need to, buy a house or, and that, different programs. There's so many different programs out there now, especially with the governor pushing housing for the state of Massachusetts, but there are federal programs again. So you never know unless you check, VA.gov, and it'll tell you basically mass.gov veterans. It will give you the information. If not, there's a resource to find out. There's always a phone number to contact. I'm just saying, there's a lot of programs though. So,
Yeah, that sounds great.
yeah, that's what I have. Maxine.
All
Yes.
right. Do we get a new meeting attendee here?
When
someone
yeah.
just came to join us, which is always good. I don't have like much else on the agenda,
Definitely.
unless, like I said, if anybody else has any other items that they have on their burning desire list, please let me know. And then otherwise, maybe we look to schedule for end of June.
Yes.
June
26.
26. I think Veronica may have a meeting that night, if I remember correctly, but
Oh, okay.
I think unless we did a little bit earlier, maybe like a 5:30. Does that work?
Anything works for me, Jack. So whatever's easy for you. I mean, I'm flexible.
So Kieran, we have 4, right, for Housing Trust?
Correct.
Okay. I have 7 for the CR committee. So if we can fit it in between, that's good.
Maybe we could do 6 p.m. again. I don't know if we, probably be just about an hour. Do you need are you virtual for that, Veronica, or are you?
Yes, there's a link, but I think we're also in person. So.
Okay. So maybe we shoot for 6 again, unless that's a vacation week for anybody. So.
How's your schedule, Jack?
The 26th, I am free.
Okay. then we'll put it down for the 26th at 6 then. That'd
Yep.
be great. I'll put it
Yeah.
on my calendar for sure.
That sounds good. I'll follow the same process. I'll email you out a link. Hopefully it doesn't give you a Teams invite this time. I'll try to be mindful of that. I'll ask my
Can I just sneak in one more question I think this is probably Veronica. Is there a joint meeting? So we're doing a joint meeting between the Housing Authority and the Affordable Housing Trust?
We have been, and we could, if there's something, a reason to meet jointly, that would be good.
Okay.
We could look at that day for that and both, feed agenda items. We were trying to do quarterly, but that kind of fell apart when I think our last one was September, maybe
Yeah.
October,
Yeah.
in the fall. So
I found it helpful to sort of be exposed to what your all's line of thinking, and I think that it makes a lot of sense in my mind if you're okay with it.
oh yeah, sure.
Definitely.
So maybe we could do, because we have a little bit of voting things to do. We could do the first 45 minutes or something of the Housing Trust, and then, do a joint with THA and keep
Okay.
the same.
That sounds good.
Maybe something like that would be good.
Yeah, maybe aim for 5. So I'll put this in an email, but maybe we aim for like 5 o'clock for a joint meeting, and
Okay.
give the first hour to THHT to go through their voting items, and then have Housing Authority join to have just sort of a deeper discussion on a few things, and sort
Yeah,
of go
That'd be
from there.
great.
That
Yeah,
would
okay.
work.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Just remind me.
But we got a little bit of time between now and then. So again, if you have any burning questions, feel free to send them my way. Happy to assist in any way I can. So
Sounds good.
Sounds
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
Thank you,
Make a
Karen.
motion to adjourn.
I'll get those links out to you. Yeah. So I move that we adjourn.
Second the motion. That's okay.
there's the dog for you too. He was on
Oh.
camera. So
That's my second one.
You seconded it.
Do we need a roll call vote on the adjournment?
Natalie Call, yes.
Jack Moran, yes.
And I don't count, but I'm a yes.
Maxie, yes.
Veronica
Neither do
Cal.
I. Great.